Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reed. I'm a designer on Dune-themed games and expansions. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about a power alliance that I call the Technologists for the classic Dune board game. And that is an alliance that exists between the Ixians and Richesse. Now, in the Dune lore, these are the two houses, House Vernius and House Richesse, that were responsible for all of the technology in the Imperium. And they typically competed against each other for big contracts like Highliners and any other major technology that the Imperium did use, even though they were a little bit phobic of technology to some degree, mostly artificial intelligence, but technology as a whole still exists. And the Ixians tended to come out on top with getting most of those contracts, so they were much more successful. House Richesse didn't fare quite as well financially. But in the game, this Technologists faction alliance can be a very powerful one, and that's largely through a number of their card shenanigans that they can do, but with some of the shipping advantage that the Richesse can bring to the table as well. So let's take a closer look at what these two factions can do to complement each other and make for a powerful alliance. So we're going to start off with what the Ixians have just in themselves. They have a little bit of a combat advantage with the cyborgs, which are forces that count double. And that is true in basic as well as advanced, which is a step up from, say, the Emperor's Sardaukar or the Fremen's Fedaykin, which they only have those advantages in advanced. Now, I typically only play advanced, so this little extra boost here is not quite as good, although they do have more. So they have 7 of these, whereas the Emperor only has 5 and the Fremen only have the 3. But the real strength here, because even though they do have to dial, they have to spend the spice to count as double strength. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. But the real strength of this combat ability here, I think, is the suboids and the fact that they can take the losses. So you are in a battle as the Ixians, you can dial your cyborgs and sacrifice them. And if you have suboids that have survived the battle, you can send them to the tanks in lieu of a cyborg. So each suboid that you're able to send means that a cyborg actually gets to stay in the territory. And again, that's provided you've won the battle. And that's good because they only have 1 free revival. Now, they can use that free revival on a cyborg or a suboid. And unlike, again, the Fedaykin and the Sardaukar, the Ixians don't have any limitations as to how many cyborgs they can revive each turn, although they do cost a little bit extra. They're 3 spice each. So, of course, the cyborgs also have a better collection rate on spice, and they have better movement as well. So it is a strong ally for the Richesse to have in terms of combat. But it's one of their other abilities that comes into play a little bit more, and that is their bidding one. So they get to see all the cards that are going to be up for auction for that round, plus 1 extra. And then they're going to choose one of those cards to suppress, and they can put that card on the top or the bottom of the deck. And they're going to want to put it on the top when they're in an alliance. So not only do they have information about what cards are going to be up for bid, they can pull one of the better cards out, put it on top, because one of their ally advantages is that if their ally does buy a card, they can discard it, and then they can draw the top card off of the deck. Now, you're going to get some great synergy with House Richesse, with another one of the Ixian advantages, and that's an advanced one called Technology. So here's how this little scam works. The Richesse have an ability called Black Market in advanced, and that is what they can sell a card from their hand at the beginning of the bidding phase, even technically before the bidding phase really even happens, because it's before declaration, where you declare how many people have a full hand and how many cards you have in your hand, and that determines how many cards are going to be sold. So they're doing this black market thing where they're going to put a card up for bid, and it's usually not a good card. In fact, it's best when it is a bad card. And let's say that it's a cheap hero, maybe even a worthless card, but you don't have Chom or the Bene Gesserit who are interested in getting those cards. So if they can sell a card that is not that good, they can put it up there and the Ixians can buy it. Now, why would they want to buy it? Well, they're going to give their ally a little bit of spice, but this is probably not going to go for very much. But what happens then is when the bidding does begin, the Ixians can use their technology advantage to then put the crappy card that they bought up and take the card that was going to be up for auction. So they've stacked the bidding round with good cards, and they're going to take a good card up for bid before Trades even gets to see it, and then they're going to put the crappy one that they bought from Rich S up there. Now, everybody knows it's a crappy card. Nobody's going to want to buy it, so who should buy it? Well, Rich S should buy it. And why should they buy it? Because as soon as they buy the crappy card that they already sold, they can immediately discard it and take the good card that the Ixians have planted for them on top of the deck. And then now they've got a really good card. So they haven't had to spend very much spice, but both factions have probably ended up with pretty good cards, or certainly better than the one that the Rich S faction sold. So this is something they can do this once, because you can only use black market on one card for the Rich S, and they can only use technology one time in the bidding phase. But again, these are two factions that are probably not going to get into an alliance and go straight for the win that turn, although they certainly can. A lot of times you're joining an alliance with a faction that is already a little bit positioned to win, and you are maybe a little bit positioned to win. That's the ideal time to form an alliance. But sometimes what's going to happen is that's two other factions. It's not these two factions necessarily. So if these two factions are able to join an alliance and they haven't been sucked up by somebody else because of positioning, it's a good one to get into, and they can spend a couple of turns optimizing their hands that way. Now, in the meantime, there's a couple of things that the Rich S faction can do. So if they can get the Ixians to help them, and between them they can manage to buy the Rich S treachery card that is also going to be sold that turn. So this is not the black market card. It's one of the 10 Rich S treachery cards that they start the game with, that they have to sell one each turn. Anytime the Rich S has one of those cards in their hand, they can give it to their ally at any time. And if they have multiple in their hand, nobody really knows which card that the Rich S is giving to the Ixian. So that's a nice little benefit there. But the other thing that the Rich S faction can do with their ally has to do with their no-field. So the no-field tokens are a way for House Rich S to ship to Arrakis relatively inexpensively, and in some cases even at a better rate overall than what the guild has for themselves and their ally. And that is because each no-field token, it only costs the amount that it would take to ship one force. And there are 3 tokens. So there's one that has a 0, there's one that has a 3, and there's one that has a 5. And that's the number of forces that you are shipping. So when you make your shipment action, you pay for one force and you put the no-field token down wherever you were going to ship. So it would be 1 spice to ship that no-field token into a stronghold, 2 spice to ship it directly into a non-stronghold territory, like where there's a spice blow. So that can be very handy if there is a spice blow and you want to bring 5 or even 3 forces down, and it's only going to cost you 2 spice to do that. So you're actually going to be able to collect more than it costs to ship down, which normally any faction other than the guild, they're just breaking even. They're spending as much as it would take for them to collect, unless they've got control of Carthag and Arakim. But even then, the collection rate is still not great, considering how much you've spent to ship directly to a desert territory. But the no-fields let them get around that. They really lets them get to some of those out-of-the-way places that other factions maybe can't or unwilling to go to, and they can ship directly to them. Well, they can extend that to their allies as well. Now, the benefit the richest have when they use their no-field tokens is that they don't have to reveal how many forces there were shipped there. They can reveal it at the end of shipping a movement before collection, especially if they're not going to be in a battle. But then if they are going to be in the battle, they don't have to reveal it until they reveal their battle plans. But with the ally, if they're going to use a no-field token to let an ally ship however many forces that the no-field token can carry, they have to reveal it immediately. But the benefit there is normally when the Rich S uses a no-field token, once it gets revealed, that revealed one is going to be placed in front of their shield, and they can't use that token again until they reveal another one. But if their ally is revealing the other one, that means that the one that was in front of their shield gets to go behind their shield. So it's a nice way for them to cycle out the 5 force no-field token and get use of it again perhaps that same turn. So it's a nice little, again, a little scam that Rich S and their ally can pull. But with the Ixians, since they can ship directly into their hidden mobile stronghold, is sometimes using that 3 no-field token, even though you're only getting to ship 3 forces down for the cost of 1. Usually, the Ixians have got a presence in the hidden mobile stronghold, and adding a few more forces to it is usually enough. Or, again, if they're shipping down 2 cyborgs and a suboid, then that's 3 forces is still pretty good, because that's 4 strength potentially there that you could dial in a battle. So that's nothing to take for granted, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So while it's not a powerhouse alliance, they do have some nifty little things that they can do that give them a little bit more of an edge than a lot of other alliances are going to have in terms of optimizing their hands and getting onto the planet a little more efficiently. One of the things I like to do when I'm in an alliance with the Ixians as House Rich S is I like to make sure that I can ship down maybe a no-field with a sizable force, or sometimes even the 0, at a location where there is spice, and get into a battle so that the other faction there either has to full dial, or is going to lose all their forces, or is going to lose enough that they're not going to be able to collect all the spice there, particularly when the hidden mobile stronghold is within 3 territories of that spice flow. Because by sending my own forces down there, even if I'm sacrificing them, that means that the Ixians are going to be able to move before the storm in the next turn and scoop up any of the leftover spice, or potentially all of that spice, because when they move their hidden mobile stronghold up to 3 territories, at that point they can collect spice depending on how many forces they have in there. So it's a nice way to get that spice to their ally by basically fending off other challengers, or making them pay enough in blood that they're just not able to get all the spice, especially the larger spice blows at 10 or the 12 down in Cielago South. You can't always, you don't always want to send a huge force down there because it is kind of in the middle of nowhere. And the storm is often bearing down on that sector. But yeah, it's one where after a battle, it's very likely that you're not going to be able to get all of the spice there. So it's nice for the Ixians to be able to zoom by and get that spice. So these are some of the things that make the Technologists a pretty good alliance to get into. I would say it's definitely not one of the most powerful alliances, but when things are going right, they can be very formidable, especially if it works out with the bidding advantage from the Ixians, where they can look at the cards and they can say, all right, this is going to be a jackpot one, or there's a lot of garbage in here. There's one really good card. I'm going to put that one on top for the Rich S to get. Maybe they'll get lucky, and it's kind of a mix. So there's some cards that aren't good, some that are good. So if they do have the black market card that the Ixians can use their technology to upgrade it to something better, when the stars align for that sort of thing, then it's a great turn, and it may be the turn that they want to go for it, and because they've picked up some cards relatively cheaply, and they've got the spice to ship down and to fight, then they can go for the battle. It's nice that the Ixians typically already have one stronghold under their control, and so if Rich S can swoop in and control another 1 or 2, then they only need 1 more to get to their 4 strongholds. But yeah, you're going to have at least 6 in the game with the Ixians there, so it's harder to stronghold block for everybody else, and you might be able to catch somebody and pull off a win. That's it for this one, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.